r/entitled Karens. My mother is a Karen. My mother may have been the original entitled Karen. First off, my biological father was a married man who already had 2 kids with his wife when my mother seduced him and purposely forgot the birth control. When he wouldn't leave his wife and kids for her, she blackmailed him into buying her a new sports car. Then, since she didn't want me, she dumped me with my grandparents and went after, got pregnant by, another married man. That guy wouldn't leave his wife and kids either, so she got him to give her 3 credit cards and gave up my half-sister for adoption. My mother couldn't hold onto a job, or a man, for long. So she continually moved in and out of my grandparents' house and we sometimes shared a bedroom with twin beds. I called my grandparents Mama and Papa, and was told to call my mother Sissy. I thought she was my much older sister. I barely remember her being around. She didn't even eat meals with us. She would just show up in the middle of the night after partying with her friends, raid the fridge, then slip into bed fully clothed to sleep it off. At some point, my grandfather had enough of this behavior and told her he wanted her gone before she got pregnant again. With no job and no husband, just several boyfriends, my mother decided to get even. She showed up with a U-Haul trailer attached to her sports car, and with the 3 credit cards in hand for travel expenses. She announced that since she was my real mother and that she was taking custody of me and moving us 2,000 miles away, she had called up the church headquarters in the state she wanted to move to and gave them some sob story that got her a secretary job and a church-owned apartment that rented for the sum of 1 paycheck. My grandmother was beside herself with grief, and made a deal with my mother to send her regular child support in exchange for letting me spend every summer with them. My mother not only jumped at that offer, she also let them have me for 2 school years, kindergarten and 3rd grade, and she left me at a friend's house for up to 2 weeks whenever she was dating someone new who did not know she had a child. My grandparents legally claimed me as a dependent on their taxes until I was 13. That's when my mother finally married and stopped letting me spend summers with my grandparents. My vacation Karen story. So each year around June-July we'd go to Spain as a vacation trip. We always go in family and always go to the same residences, generally one with a pool and very near the beach. So each year, since we are all in family and most of us are musicians, my brother and cousins bring their guitars with them, so when it's the evening we can go to the beach or the residence gardens so we can chill and play and sing. That day we found foreign kids about our age hanging out. Since they spoke French just like us, we hung all together and played the guitar. It was really nice, honestly. Even some of the neighbors were watching us and clapping, until it was 11 o'clock. Those same neighbors started telling us to stop soon because it was almost 12 so we don't get a noise complaint. Suddenly, an angry Karen showed up yelling at us from her window. She was cursing and insulting us in all the ways. She was threatening us to call the police and that if we don't stop immediately she would cut our heads off with a pickaxe. Even if it was a Friday, she was yelling her life out, telling us that unlike us idiots she had work tomorrow. She kept yelling even if we were leaving. At the end she called the police. Most of us left. The police was just confused. It wasn't even 12 and they found themselves with a bunch of minors, so all they could do is send them back to their apartments. Even if I wished it wasn't done. Since few days later she come back. We were having a family dinner and we used to put some music. She come barging and start knocking our door like crazy. We opened the door. Gotta remind you all it was 2 PM, like we weren't even at night. She start yelling again, telling us that she have work and that she want to sleep. Thing is, we live at the 11th floor while she lives at the 6th. We were confused as if we didn't heard about her afterwards, so yeetus the Karen us. First complaint ever. Thanks Karen. I'm an electrician. I work for myself and have done for the last 8 years. Recently I was contacted by my accredited certification company where I register my work to. They told me I had received a complaint about some work I carried out. I looked through the complaint and saw the name Karen. Feeling amused by the stereotype at first, I continued to read. Karen purchased the property in 2020. I carried out the work in 2015 for the previous homeowners who asked me to install their cable, asserting route to their complete satisfaction. Karen complained that she was unhappy how the cable was installed. I was left in a position where I had to rectify the work at my own cost. Now I have a tainted complaints record. Thanks Karen. Karen doesn't like me using a disabled bay. I was going out to a museum with my 2 cousins, grandmother and daughter. I was meeting my cousins there. I managed to get in one of the few disabled spaces in front of the museum. I get out and help my daughter out. I have the car door open with the wheelchair ready to help my grandmother. A Karen walks in front of the car and starts to rant. According to her, I was being a terrible person for taking up a disabled space rather than parking 5 minutes away. Disabled spaces aren't the same as parent-child spaces. The Karen ranted about how she was going to report me. Karen said it's unfair how she had to park 5 minutes away and had to walk here, but I thought I could break the rules. I just let her rant on. I then focus on my grandmother. I start to help her out. I hear Karen go quiet. She can see my grandmother struggle to transfer from the car to the wheelchair even though it's a couple of steps. I shut the car and lock up before walking past her. I've got to admit I did look very smug. Just to add, I had a blue badge in the car to show I was entitled to park there when my grandmother is in the car. Karen doesn't realize how fast food drive-thrus work. I was working window at a popular fast food location and you pay at one window and get your items from the next. This Karen's card kept declining, so on her next try she drove off before the payment person could mention it. At the next window we mentioned it to her and gave her a few options, but she was being difficult and decided the best way would be to go through the drive-thru again just to get back at the payment window rather than get out her car and walk a few steps. She then said she wanted all her food and drink to be redone so it's fresh and not just sitting on the heat plate. We knew her order, so we done it as soon as possible so it's ready. There was a few cars there so it took a few minutes, but everything was still hot. She got back to the food window, I gave her the drinks, then she wanted to check each item that it was hot enough fresh. One of her drinks was a hot drink which included whipped cream which melts quite quickly, and she saw it was partially melted so demanded a new drink. So I did it cause it took only a few minutes, then gave her her food. She asked if the food was hot, but I was wearing gloves so couldn't quite feel the temperature, but I asked her it was fresh. When she got the food she said it was quite warm and demanded us to show her old food to make sure this is fresh. It doesn't work like that. I told her it would have been either thrown in the bin or used for another order. It took me and a couple other people to explain multiple times it was made again and she can't see her old food. She then was trying to say no one said sorry to her for this inconvenience, even though people did multiple times and actually went out of their way to help her. And also it's not our fault about her card declining and her wanting to go back around. Eventually we told her what she wanted to hear and she asked for our names so she could complain about us. Provocative Karen at cleaning client. If anyone has read this before, it's because I posted it also on another Karen page. Onto the story. So I work as a cleaning lady. I am a dude, and I had to clean for this nice old lady who helped me the best she could in explaining what she wanted me to clean. I was knee deep in business when her daughter aka Karen steps into the home. Already off the bat, she is screaming at her dog to follow her inside. I thought nothing of it, and it was only a few minutes later that I strike a conversation with Karen to ask if everything is in order before I clean for 4 hours. She went on with deep attention to the fact that I should clean the floor with a very dry cloth cause it will damage the floor if I wet it too much. I told her I understood and began cleaning the upstairs first, since the downstairs was only something simple like only cleaning the floor and nothing else. Ventilating, dusting, cleaning various rooms, and lastly the floor with deadly precision to ensure that nothing happens to the quality of the floor. 2 hours in, she smashes the door open and tells me that the downstairs still exists. Before I could get a word out she cuts me off and asks if I spoke English, which she was horrible at. We were speaking Dutch perfectly before. 2 hours isn't a lot, you barely have any time left, she said. She then proceeds to rant and teach me how to properly do the job by grabbing the cloth out of my hands and proceeds to demonstrate. By the time she smashes the cloth into the floor, I could already see she watered the cloth too much. Come on, I do this every day. See, it's easy. Just like this. And the most racist slow talking Dutch ever. Remind you, the entire time she is doing this I am telling her that I already know how to clean a floor and that I was just following her instructions to be extra careful. Luckily she marches off as if she solved world hunger, and I can get back to work. I was already so close to finishing the work upstairs that I proceed downstairs in just 10 minutes. I vacuum the floor and later clean it the way she wants, just with a much drier cloth. After the wood was cleaned, I could start using cleaning product again on the stone tiles. I bypass her at some point and she takes half a second glance into the bucket and says in the most Karen-ish voice you could ever imagine, "There isn't enough water in your bucket." Mind you, I measure my products and even them out with water to make sure I actually clean your floor and not destroy your water bill. Not to mention the bucket had 2 liters in it for a medium-sized cloth for cleaning. When I finished the entirety of the orders given to me, there was a solid 45 minutes of nearly nothing to do, even with extra attention to detail such as the very dusty tops of shelves and closets. So up yours, Karen. You didn't ask me to do those. And I saved you a bunch of lung problems for you and your mom. And oh boy, I was glad it was over. But God said fuck you and punctured the back wheel of my bike. Had to walk 45 minutes home. Thanks for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe for more videos.